In today's late night special video, we're going to actually be doing a full-length video, so no longer a short one. We'll probably be pretty brief and to the point, but we do have a lot to go over. So I suspect it's going to be a normal length video. We're going to go over the tropics. We're going to go over the upcoming pattern. We do have a northeast snowstorm potentially on the way. Snowfall out west, still a big-time factor, obviously, as we're moving towards November. Colder air after this big warm-up is on the way for the eastern United States, and we're going to be talking about all of those things within this video. Be sure to check out Prestige Weather before we dive into things. We do have our third winter forecast available for early access there, where you can check it out today for $5 a month in the pinned comment and description down below. Highly recommended, of course. It's a great value, and you get a ton of benefits for being a member. You should for sure check it out today, again, in the description and pinned comment down below. Kind of against what I was saying yesterday, I said it's highly unlikely that we see Tammy redevelop, and sure enough, it's gone ahead and redeveloped. So this one is going to briefly be a tropical storm again, I suppose. But we do expect that one to pretty much come to an end. As you can see, we also have another disturbance in the southern Caribbean. As you know, I don't usually expect these ones to really develop. But this one does have a northern trajectory to it, which gives me an idea that it probably has a better chance of development than the one that we saw prior. That one was very close to land and expected to continue to move towards the west. This one is expected to move northward towards Jamaica and Cuba. Highly favorable waters as it reaches closer to those areas. Obviously, land interaction would be a factor as it moves closer to those islands. So there is a lot at play here. We do have a 10% chance of development over the next 48 hours and then a 30% chance over the next 7 days. Certainly something to think about. Let's dive into the upcoming pattern, though, because we do have a whole lot to discuss today. I want to move us straight towards tomorrow afternoon, and we see a very interesting storm begin to take place here. This is going to be mostly for the central states. We see an area of low pressure here over New Mexico. This is creating some thunderstorm activity to the east for states like Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, and Missouri. And then to the north of there, we do see that there is snowfall extending all the way from Colorado into states like Wyoming, Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa. Mostly snow showers, but obviously first flakes for a lot of folks. Gonna be an interesting one. I want to move us towards the nighttime, and you can see that a lot of those eastern wintry precipitation areas kind of dissipate, but we do see it continue for Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska as we move into Sunday morning. And eventually afternoon, this area of low pressure never really takes off. We have some broad low pressure in this pocket here. Still snowfall for Colorado, perhaps some flurries extending into Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa. But we do see plenty of thunderstorms and showers to the south and east of this area, and I do think that that could cause some impacts, even some showers extending into the mid-Atlantic and northeast, as you can see. I'm going to take us straight towards Monday, October 30th, and we can tell that this is a weaker area of kind of just a cold front at this point. We do have a lot of warm air pushing from the southeast. We have a lot of cold air trying to fill in from the north, and this eventually will win out, as we've talked about before. There's just a whole lot more cold air at play here, and this will eventually push the warm air out of the way and take over for the east. As you can see, we're going to just take this towards October 31st, which will be Tuesday on Halloween Day. We still have a little bit of a frontal boundary here, and we still have some warmer air working its way up the southeast coast, but this cold air is moving in a hurry. It's trying to fill in, and this is going to be a potent Arctic blast, to say the least, bringing the coldest air of the year by far. And by Wednesday, what we see is that this low pressure system is way further from the coast than we originally saw. We usually were seeing over the past maybe 5 or 6 model runs, we're seeing a very large interior northeastern snowstorm. And as we've seen this get suppressed to the southeast and move slower, we've seen this become a weaker storm further off the coast. Obviously, we're not going to see coastal snowfall widespread. So what ends up happening is we get this higher elevation, brief, moderate to heavy snowfall for states like Vermont, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut, and maybe even close to Rhode Island. There's some hilly areas in there. But this is going to be much, much more isolated, much harder to get going, and less likely to accumulate. So that is what would end up happening. And I want to mention, as we've seen this kind of trend from being around here to over here over the past couple of days, it would not surprise me to see this low continue to trend towards the southeast. And if that does take place, we could see the snowfall go away altogether, and that would not surprise me at all. But sometimes we do see these systems kind of want to trend back over time. That could be a thing. There's a lot that could happen here, and it's confusing when we're in the long range because there's so many possibilities. But of course, we're going to keep you guys up to date with all of these things over the coming weeks. Now, as we reach Thursday, the 2nd, a very quiet day there. We're just going to skip right past it. Friday, the 3rd, another very quiet day. Saturday, the 4th, another quiet day. And then Sunday, the 5th, finally, we have some action as we get another very strong low pressure system moving in through the northwest. Here, this is causing some Rocky Mountain snowfall, as you can see, and some rainfall as you work your way further west towards the coast and towards that low pressure system. And then by Monday morning, we can see that this one is wanting to kind of move up the coast towards Canada. And we do get some wintry precipitation here for a lot of the northern plains and Rockies. But this one would be a lot more impactful if we saw it move south through the Rockies and then curve up. That would be the most impactful winter system for these Rocky Mountains if we did see that take place, but obviously the model is showing the opposite of that. I don't know why I felt like mentioning that, but that is a classic storm track that creates Rocky Mountain blizzards, and we have yet to see that happen here this year so far. Much more common in a La Nina year. Of course, we're in an El Nino year, but we will be watching for those more impactful type of storm tracks. And that's why knowing your weather history is so important, because a lot of times these historical tracks are going to help us out a lot to know the impacts of a storm. Now, the total precipitation here, no surprise with that very major storm that we get. Pretty far above average precipitation here in the northwest. Also, wherever this frontal boundary goes, we're seeing a lot of above average activity in here. It's actually a lot bigger. It's something like this, where we're seeing primarily that above average precipitation. But for a lot of the Rockies and the plains, we're not getting too much. And then the southeast is left pretty dry. It's mostly those in-between areas. Total snowfall kind of dying down as we've seen our first snowfall event happen through the days yesterday and today. So now we have one less showing snowfall here, but we still have plenty of those pinks and blues happening over the Rockies. Of course, you can see we have about 2 to 6 inches here in these higher elevation areas. For New England, probably going to be less than that if that is what this model is showing. So you could maybe see flakes to a dusting, I would say, is a much more realistic solution here. Anywhere in the grays is a dusting. If anything, blues are 2 to 6 inches, purples are 6 to 10, pinks are 10 to 20 there, and then your pastel blues are going to be about 20 inches plus, and we do see some of that for Colorado, where we see that lingering heavy snowfall here with this upcoming system. Let's just dive into the temperature pattern, shall we? We see this warmth, very, very significant warmth over the east, surging warmth here, and this is all due in part to this negative PNA out here. I talk about this so much, but when you see this negative PNA, it forces the warm air around that cold air mass, and we see that happening here. But we will see over time the opposite of this begins to occur, and that is what we're going to be watching for here. So I want to just take us into the upcoming pattern where we see this cold air finally move eastward. That's going to start on Monday the 30th into Tuesday the 31st, of course. Look out west. We can see by Wednesday the 1st, we have a full-blown positive PNA now taking place. And we see the opposite. This cold air is moving around that warm air mass, and we see Arctic air moving into the eastern states. So this PNA out here, which stands for Pacific North American Oscillation, is going to dictate everything. And that is, I mean, I can't state that enough. It completely dictates the pattern, at least over the past year or so. This has been a really strong indicator. Historically, it always has been, but I feel like particularly this year, you can tell by what the temperatures are out west, what it's going to be east of that point, and that is a super useful tool to know about. We see that cold hangs around. We do see some warmth trending in the long range as we reach the 4th, 5th, and 6th especially, and we talked about that, I think, over the past couple of days, how we do expect at some point during that first week of November a potential return of the warmth in the east, and we will be watching for that. Let's take a long-range look here, and actually, I think I got to refresh this. No, okay, we have it. So we see colder air moving into the east here, especially as we reach, again, the beginning of November. We do get a brief warm-up, and you're seeing that right around here. It's very brief, though, on this model, and then we get a return of the potent cold air for around the 10th through the 15th. 15th through 20th, a little less cold, but it's still there. And then the 20th through the 25th, we get a negative PNA pattern. So again, colder temperatures out here, and then we get the warmth surging in the east. It's almost every single time we see this happen. Let's see for the 25th through the 30th. And then eventually, as you can see, for the 1st through the 6th, what do you know? Positive PNA. What does that mean? Let's just draw this in so it looks better. Cold air returns to the east. So you can just see how every single time it just works like clockwork, and it dictates the pattern. So that is why I use it and talk about it so much. Anyway, be sure to subscribe as we do upload videos just like this one every single day, albeit much earlier usually. But today we happen to make a late video, which you guys have been enjoying actually lately. So I've been doing these every once in a while, and it's turned out really good. Be sure to hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Also, like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.